The first time I saw her, she was alone at the corner table with a worksheet in front of her and tears running down her face like she'd been at it a while and had given up on stopping them. I was wiping down the steam line after the noon rush. Clement Memorial's cafeteria empties fast after 12:30, nurses back to their floors, doctors with their badge access lunches somewhere else, everyone moving. But this girl, 9 or 10 years old, sat there in the corner with a pencil she wasn't using and a printed math sheet she clearly hated. I don't make a habit of sitting with strangers' children. Single dad, I know what it looks like. But nobody was coming for her, and the worksheet said, fractions, mixed numbers and improper fractions. And I have been doing that problem in my head since I was 7 years old because when you grow up with nothing, numbers are the one thing nobody can take from you. I pulled out the chair across from her. You mind? She shook her head without looking up. Can I see it? She slid it across. I looked at problem 4. She'd done the numerator right and panicked on the denominator. Classic. You're 90% of the way there, I said. You just stopped too soon. She looked at me then. How do you know? 'Cause you got the hard part. The easy part scared you. I handed it back. Write what you've already got, then just divide. You already know how to divide. She wrote. She divided. She got it. Her whole face changed. That specific kind of surprise children have when they discover their own competence, the best thing in the world to see. I'm Rosie, she said, Darnell. Do you work here? Lunch line. Monday through Friday. She nodded like that settled something important. Okay, she said, and went back to problem 5. I went back to wiping down the steam line. The next Tuesday, she was at the same corner table. Different worksheet. Same focused then panicked expression. She waved me over before I'd finished refilling the soup. That was how it started. I want to be clear about something. I was not trying to become part of anyone's life. Marcus, my son, was 7 that fall. Between his school and my shifts, and the Tuesday and Thursday evenings, I spent running a tutoring program out of the basement of Calvary Baptist. On Renner Street, I was not looking for more. My wife Diane had been gone 4 years. I had learned how to be enough. For Marcus, kids who showed up at Calvary with their backpacks and their untied shoes and their need for someone to sit still with them. That was plenty. Rosie kept coming. And somewhere in the 3rd or 4th Tuesday, a woman in a gray wool coat started arriving at the corner table 10 minutes after Rosie and sitting down without a word, opening a laptop and working. I registered her the way you register the weather. She was there. She was not unfriendly. She was occupied. One Tuesday she closed the laptop and said, while Rosie was finishing her last problem, she talks about you. Does she? She says you explain things without making her feel stupid. A pause. That's harder than it sounds. I know, I said. Somebody did it for me once. She looked at me directly for the first time. She had careful eyes, the kind that have learned to assess quickly because assessment is survival in the world she's in. What do you do? She said. Besides the lunch line. I told her about Calvary Baptist. The program I'd built, 8 years running, started with 6 kids from the neighborhood and a folding table and a donated whiteboard. 83 kids now. 3 volunteer instructors I'd trained, a waiting list, every Tuesday and Thursday. No charge, no requirement except showing up. She was quiet a moment. How do you fund it? Grants, mostly. A foundation picked us up 2 years ago. There's materials and the small stipend I pay the instructors. I shrugged. I wrote a lot of letters before anybody answered. She nodded slowly. Something crossed her face I couldn't read. What's the program called? The Briggs Learning Annex. I said it plain, the way you say the name of something you built with your hands. Not proud exactly, but settled. She went back to her laptop. Rosie tugged my sleeve and showed me her finished sheet. I learned her name was Nora. I learned she was tired in the specific way of people who carry large things without complaint. I did not learn what she did for work, or where she lived, or why her daughter ate lunch alone at a hospital cafeteria 3 days a week. Those things were not mine to ask. What I did learn, she listened, carefully, the way that some people think only executives do, when really it's a habit anyone can build, if they've ever had to understand something difficult with no one to explain it. I had built that habit young. She had built it some other way. We recognized it in each other across a corner table without naming it. In November, Rosie told me her grandfather wanted to meet me. I said, that was nice. Rosie said, he's very serious but he cries at commercials. Mom says that makes him a good person. I said I thought that was probably right. Nora, 2 seats away, did not look up from her laptop. She smiled at her screen. The dinner was on a Sunday. Nora had asked me a week before quietly, after Rosie had packed up and walked ahead toward the elevator. My father likes to meet people who do things worth doing, she said. He'd like to hear about Calvary. She said it simply, and I received it simply, and that was the whole conversation. I wore my good shirt. Marcus came with me because Marcus goes where I go, and I told him to be polite and eat what he was given. Her father's name was Gerald. He met us at the door of a house that was quiet in the way that money makes things quiet. Good walls, good windows, the hush of rooms that have never had to be anything but calm. He shook my hand with both of his the old way, and studied my face with the open directness of a man who stopped performing a long time ago. We sat down to dinner. Gerald asked me about the program. I told him how it started. Diane's idea originally. She'd grown up on Renner Street, and she always said the neighborhood didn't need charity. It needed somewhere for kids to put their minds. She died before we got the table and the whiteboard. I built it after. Gerald was quiet for a moment. Rosie was feeding Marcus a bread roll across the table. Nora was watching her father. He reached to the credenza beside his chair, the kind of reach a man makes when he's been planning it, and set a manila folder on the table. He opened it. He turned 2 pages. He looked up at me. The Briggs Learning Annex, he said. Renner Street, Calvary Baptist Church basement. Yes. Her folder, so I could see it. It was a grant file. The letterhead at the top read, Harwell Family Foundation. My application, my letter, my program description, with Diane's name in the acknowledgement paragraph where I always put it. We funded you 2 years ago, Gerald said. I approved this myself. He paused. I read every application. I remember yours because of how you described why the program exists. He looked at me steadily. You wrote, my wife believed this neighborhood didn't need rescue. It needed a room and someone willing to stay in it. I put that sentence in our annual report. Didn't know what to say. I said, I didn't know the foundation's name. The letter came through the Community Development Office. That's how we root it. Gerald nodded. We don't always know who we're funding until later. He looked at his daughter. Nora was very still. She was looking at the folder, then at me, with the expression of someone doing rapid arithmetic. Not the frightened kind. Not the embarrassed kind. The kind where you are recalculating something important, and the new answer is better than the old one, and the surprise is in the upgrade. The lunch line, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Yes. She was quiet another moment. Gerald refilled my water glass without being asked, which is the gesture of a man who knows when to let silence work. I owe you a clearer introduction, Nora said. You don't owe me anything, I said. He found me. The rest happened the way things happen. Rosie looked up from across the table. I told you he was good at explaining things, she said to her mother, with the calm authority of a 9-year-old who knows she's right. Marcus laughed. I laughed. Gerald laughed last and longest. On the drive home, Marcus fell asleep in the back seat before we cleared the neighborhood. I drove through the quiet streets with the window cracked, the November air coming in, cold and clean. I thought about Diane. I thought about the letter I'd written 3 years ago at the kitchen table at midnight, when Marcus was asleep, and I was running on 4 hours and stubbornness and the specific faith of a purse who has lost enough to know that small things matter more than they look. I thought about how a sentence she gave me ended up in a foundation's annual report, read by people I will never meet, in rooms I will never see. That is how worth moves through the world, I think. Not in announcements, not in reversals. In a child who waves you over to a corner table. In a letter answered 2 years late by the daughter of the man who answered it. In a room and someone willing to stay in it. I pulled into the driveway. I carried Marcus inside. I set him in his bed and pulled the blanket up. And he didn't wake, and I stood in the doorway of his room for a moment the way I always do, the way I will do for as long as he lets me, just making sure. Then I went to the kitchen and wrote Nora a note. I thanked her for the dinner. I said her father was a man worth knowing. I said Rosie was going to be fine, more than fine, and that she should trust her daughter's instincts, Because the girl knew a good thing when she sat across from one. I sealed it and set it on the counter. I'd give it to Rosie on Tuesday. She'd deliver it the way she delivers everything. Directly, without ceremony, with complete confidence that it will land exactly as it should. She's been right so far.